Congratulations! We made it through another year. That's probably the worst feeling we've had in a while. It was undeniably one of the most interesting years for film as a whole. From the writers and actors strikes to a new phenomenon that can never be replicated, we even got what I considered the best horror debut I've seen in quite a while. 2024 can't get wilder than this. But of course, this video is about what I thoroughly enjoyed this year. So let's stick to what I did watch and what I would rank as my favorites. I'm going to start with the honorable mentions because there were a few that could have easily made it to my top 5. SwaggBae is probably the best biopic I've seen, period. While I did prepare for a review of this film after seeing it, I feel like it'd be better to discuss this here at the end of 2023 so I can give out my thoughts and opinions. In this, we follow the events behind the creation of the titular phone presented in a dramatic comedy. Mike, played by Jay Baruchel, is having trouble trying to present his pitch with Doug, played by director Matt Johnson. Jim Belize, played by Glenn Howerton, sees through the bullshit that's mentioned by the duo. However, he takes them up on the offer under the condition that he would be in charge of the company. Mike accepts the proposition and joins him as co-CEO. The rest of the film goes through the journey of SwaggBae's success and its inevitable downfall. Its ending undeniably says it all as a tragic tale. Most of the cast did very well in their performances, including Jay Baruchel. However, I'll go off the record to say that Glenn Howerton stole the entire film for me, and it's also gotta be his career best since his role as Dennis Reynolds in Always Sunny. Should he get a Best Supporting nod at the Academy Awards, I'd be more than happy to settle on. Sanctuary was an interesting ride, as they had pretty much the lowest expectations going into it. We follow this dominatrix Rebecca, played by Margaret Qualley, as she goes through a roleplay with her client Hal, portrayed by Christopher Abbott. Sometime after, Hal wants to end this relationship with her as he wants to move on to inheriting his father's hotel business. But it's pretty clear who has the most control in this relationship, and an emotional battle between the two begins to unfold. I knew it was going to be about a dominating relationship, but I did not expect it to go the way it did. Both of them churn out excellent performances, especially from Qualley's perspective. We really see the relationship constantly turning heads, with Hal wanting to take back control of his life. It's definitely not a film for everyone, but I will say you won't forget how it ends. Nemona's premise is something I felt like I've heard before, but it executes it very, very well. The story of its production is very unfortunate, considering it might not have left blue sky after its abrupt closure. Thankfully, Netflix and Annapurna came through to save it, and the final result is nothing short of amazing. In it, we follow Elite Knight Ballister, who becomes the fugitive and victim of an unfortunate accident. In hiding, he meets Nemona, who decides to help him on his journey to reclaim his reign as a knight and find who's responsible for his downfall. Nemona's character feels like if Deadpool was gender swapped and had the powers of Beast Boy from Teen Titans, and it's wild. It's so wacky, yet so much fun at the same time. I love the film's subtle LGBTQ+ themes being utilized, especially around the relationship between Ballister and Ambrosius. Imagine trying to cancel Nemona because of some themes, Disney. Look where that's gotten ya. I don't have much else to say about this film other than please give this a good watch. The talented people at the Late Blue Sky and Annapurna's animation team did great on this, and I wouldn't want you to miss out on this gem. The Holdovers is a beautifully written Christmas film about getting over the worst of the holiday season, especially around academics. I already made a review of the film when I was attending the 11th annual Montclair Film Festival, but for those who didn't see that video, I'll give you a brief summary of the film. Taking place in the early 70s, we follow Angus Tully, played by Dominic Sessa, who is one of the few students without a home for the holiday season. His instructor, Mr. Hunnam, played by Paul Giamatti, is forced by the headmaster to supervise the holdovers. No pun intended. As such, these students have to engage in more studies during the break while dealing with Hunnam's assignments and detentions. Eventually, Angus becomes the last holdover, and a bond forms between him and Mr. Hunnam after his father's loss and parents not willing to take him for the break. As far as wholesome dramas go, this is definitely one of those that hits pretty hard. The chemistry between Dominic Sessa and Paul Giamatti's characters are heartwarming, and that's the beauty of the holiday season. When everything seems to go wrong, we're bonded by the insecurities in all of us. Once the break is over, it might not be the same once we lose that person. The ending of the film especially hits those beats, and on a hopeful note. The film's streaming today on Peacock, so please give it a watch when you can. As soon as I saw the trailer for Oppenheimer, I knew it was going to be very special. It's a pleasure to see a film that's not just about the creation of the atomic bomb, but about the person behind said bomb. I feel like most people know the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer now, especially after seeing this film. So rather than delving deep into the story, I'm just going to keep it brief and just talk about what I enjoyed. If it doesn't come as a surprise, Cillian Murphy is electrifying as Oppenheimer. Much like the real person, Murphy puts a lot of emphasis on his personality and dread for the future. As per usual for Christopher Nolan films, the visual effects were great, especially in the use of practical techniques to achieve as much realism as the bomb itself. I don't have much else to say other than this is definitely a must-watch film. As I was writing this video, the film actually got more screenings planned out to eventually hit the 1 billion mark. How funny is that? Now, this was one film I wasn't sure I wanted to make a full review on, because I'd rather let it do all the talking as to why it's amazing. But I'll talk about it anyway. We follow kamikaze pirate Shikimura, who abandons his mission and returns to a now-destroyed Tokyo district. Sometime after the end of World War II, he begins a new life working in the bay, searching for sea mines with his new crewmates. But much like the time he abandoned his position, Godzilla was there to stir up some trouble. Now with the kaiju making way to Tokyo, Kenji Noda of the minesweeping crew, and especially a former Navy technician, devises a plan to destroy Godzilla in the hopes to stall destruction and put an end to his madness. The film is beautifully shot, and with less than a $15 million budget, it's one of the most visually impressive films I've seen this whole year. It's also one of the rarities in the entire franchise that the human characters are the central focus, so much so that we really care for them. It didn't feel like a political drama like the last live-action film, but it did bring me the same nostalgia that the 54 film gave me. Naoki Sato's score is fantastically written and especially echoes the brilliance of Akira Ifukube's iconic theme on an epic scale. As a fan of the franchise for the past 10 years, it's by far the best I've seen of the God Incarnate. Even as someone who did enjoy the MonsterVerse Godzilla, nothing really beats the original, and it's especially true for -1. Nicolas Cage has had a recent comeback as of late. Willy's Wonderland was a weird film, but utilizes Cage's talents as best as it could. Pega was an emotional trip through the loss of a beloved pet, and the unbearable weight of massive talent screamed Cage throughout the entire film, and it utilized the chemistry between him and Pedro Pascal's character well. But it's this film that takes the cake for an excellent performance. Much like with The Holdovers, I already made a review on the film as it was the opening night release for Montclair. I will, however, summarize the film in this short sentence. Cage is in your dreams, and it's weird and hilarious. Like I said in my review, everyone did a phenomenal job in their respective roles, but it was mainly Cage and Julianne Nicholson who gave their best performances. I love a good film about a thorough dive into cancel culture, and not necessarily by picking it apart, but by shedding a light on how messed up we are to take everything for granted. Social media has become very toxic as of late, and a film like this helps shed light on how toxic it all can be. And it should come by no surprise, Talk to Me was fantastic. Although its subject matter is not something new, what the film does accomplish makes it feel fresher than generic horror cliches. The entire cast gave some amazing performances, but it's Sophia Wilde who perfectly encapsulates all the horror. As the person grieving the loss of their mother, her character Mia goes to these parties where the ceramic possessed hand plays a vital part as a drug. And like with every addiction, the spirits take toll on her to the point that it affects everyone else that don't see them. Much like what I said with Godzilla -1, what Danny and Michael were able to accomplish in its small budget is no feat. Some of the best horror films don't need a lot of financial backing to be unnerving. Night of the Living Dead is an appropriate example of this, and Talk to Me enters that list, as well as being my favorite film of 2023. If you want to see any of my recent reviews, you can go click this playlist right here. As always, I'll see you all in the next video, and have a happy new year. Bye, everyone.